On this episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast, we talk about the band For the Fallen Dreams. We talk about the 300 people that have played in the band, and we ask the question, do bands owe it to the fans to play their old music? Thanks for jumping on, and let's open this pit up.
Somebody hit somebody!
You know, it was extra work for me watching you like try and sign in 20 times on 3 computers.
Dude,
Freaking our IT guy can't even get into the room.
talking about, I got in. I don't know what happened though.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Pit Therapy Podcast. I'm here with Trevor and Kyle. How are you guys?
Good, man.
Good,
It's been a
dude.
good week. It's been
Yeah?
a good week.
How
Yeah.
there's been some shows. We got to catch Zabalba the other night on Monday.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was fun. It was a good turnout. You know, it was totally DIY, just an open venue space kind of thing. Unfortunately, because of that, there was not a good PA system. So it was tough to hear the vocalists and stuff. But the rest of everything was awesome. The crowd was cool. The other bands were fun. A couple Salt Lake bands, and then Upon Stone, a death metal band, was with Zabalba. So it was pretty dope. I mean,
I don't
what do
think
you
the PA was terrible. I just think you were too far in the back because you're old. Because if you're up front, you hear it just fine.
That's true. I mean, I very intentionally stood very far in the back this go around because like I've got stuff going on next week where I was just like, I can't get hurt. And even in the back, I watched a couple kids get hurt. So, it was one of those things.
There was one kid that got kicked so hard, dude. Out.
It was
the best part was
style on Kamara Usman.
the best part was he got kicked by a kid who was wearing a sling from the show 2 nights ago. He got messed up from that.
Yeah, it was
crippling to crippled.
It's pretty insane that way. But no, you walked in and you were like, listen, I can't mosh hard tonight. I've got stuff going on this week. And the first thing that happens is Josh goes swinging through the pit. Like it wasn't even like 10 seconds into it. And Josh was
too hard
up in there. So
here's the thing. So I'm not very familiar with like their newer stuff, I should say. I didn't really follow that too much, but so they played Cold early on, and I was like, I'm just gonna save my energy for that song, right? I think they played it like second song in.
It was like number 2. Yeah.
So the sample starts playing. This should be played at high volume. What does it say? This should be played in a high volume, preferably in a residential area. And it just started, and I was like, "Yep, it's go time, baby."
Yeah.
So no, it was fun. There was it was a cool mix of generations. You had people generation before me, my generation, one below me, and then one below them. So right now it's kind of cool. There's like 5 generations waves of like hardcore kids, and they were all involved, and it was just fun. So
yeah,
dude, that's got to be a cool feeling as an old head at a show like that.
Well, it's funny. There was a guy that kind of said it. Was like we were talking about shows in like 2007. We fought a lot, and he was like, this is basically what we've been fighting for the entire time. Just like this. Everyone. I wouldn't say getting along all the time, but I would say like kind of putting it to the side to just like have fun because you're all there kind of for the same thing, and everyone's just kind of doing their thing, and everyone's like pretty respective, around. So
yeah, you don't have to like each other, but you got to respect each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
and you can go to a show and have fun. That's
it
sick.
was also fun standing in the back because like you're saying that there's different generations. You can see the different styles of moshing through the generations. It was kind of funny because it was like new to old, and old was up front, like right by Zabalba and like dancing right around him and everything. But you could watch like the different styles. Like there was the guys like stomping through, like picking up change and stuff. And then there's the kids just like throwing fists and everything. Like it was crazy. It was cool watching.
It's fun for me that I went to 3 shows this last week. I'll talk about the other 2 in a second, but watching kids try to like figure out where like they land in like the food chain of hardcore, and like if they're actually practicing their mosh moves before they show up to the show, you know. It's like, I mean, let's face it, like hardcore dancing is what it is. Like it's just weird. It's a weird expression of
Super goofy.
aggressive music, you know, but you have to have some kind of coordination. And you can totally tell the kids that have never done it before, they're just, nah, I'm just gonna show up and just wing it, dude. And I'm like, nah, man, I should have stood in front of that mirror for a couple weeks.
I'll say like the 2-step ones, the people who are learning how to 2-step at shows are worse than the people just trying to swing at shows. Because all you have to do is punch the air, right? If you're swinging, if you're
Right.
2-stepping, you have to have a little bit of rhythm and coordination to it.
Yeah.
And so that one's kind of funny. A bunch of people look like the Russian dancers where they're just kind of flailing their legs out front.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's awesome.
Hey, you gotta learn somehow. So good for those guys not having shame and
Yeah, it's
doing
cool.
it. You know,
There's a lot of younger kids, you know, that like have like bumped into me or whatever like that, and like I wouldn't say like I'm not that big of an a-hole, but like, you know, they bump into me, you know, and they're like almost kind of look like they're a little terrified, and I kind of look at them like, you're fine, dude. Like it is what it is. Like just don't punch me in the face, please. But no, I went to a show Friday. It was a local showcase. It was a band I wanted to see. My drummer plays in called Sewn Shut. Have you guys checked those guys out at all?
Yeah.
They're like a straight edge band. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. They're just a Shattered Realm ripoff band, but that's fine. I like Shattered Realm, and they covered Shattered Realm, so
nice.
It was a cool show, though. It was capped, I think, at 150 kids. When I walked in, they were like, "You and then no more." And so it's like upstairs. It's like this old dance studio. So the floor is all wood, and yeah, it was packed. I was very shocked. That was the first show that Ogden, Utah has had since Mojo's Cafe has closed down. Mojo's was around, I think they stopped in 2014 or 2015. I think it was 2015. There was this little tiny coffee shop with tons of breakable stuff in there. I don't know how not all of it got smashed by the time that place was done, but it was on Washington Boulevard, and it was just like a little place for like, you know, kids up north to run around in. So,
Mojo's was crazy.
But then I was able to catch the Pain of Truth and Momentum show on Saturday. This was a new venue as well. It was at the Scooter Shop there on State Street in Salt Lake. It was a big venue. I don't even know if I would just call it a venue. It's basically just a warehouse for like Vespa scooters and stuff. No bathroom. So yeah, that was a little scary. So I walked down to Taco Time, and it was like 7:50, and they're like, "Oh, we close at 8. We're only doing to-go orders." I'm like, oh, "Okay, that's fine." So I ordered like 2 quesadillas as soon as I paid, and they're like, "Hey, thank you." And I was like, "Hey, can I use your bathroom?" I'm a paying customer. The lady was so pissed, but no, that was a cool show too. That was a huge turnout. I want to say, physically looking at it, there had to have been 200 kids. A good mixture of kids too. Like not all hardcore kids. Like it was a really good show. Momentum did good. Pain of Truth did good. Pain of Truth's actually really fun live. Terena played in a band called Witness Chamber. They're from Boise, Idaho. Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, they were really cool. I like short lineups of bands. Just kind of like get in and get out. I mean, hardcore shows always start late anyway. So, I mean, I was still home before midnight. It was kind of cool. And what was cool is like the crowd that was at the show Friday was not all there Saturday. And then the crowd for Zababa on Monday, you know, was kind of like a different one. So like it's not like the same crowd going to all 3 shows, but all 3 shows were fairly packed. Sure. So it was really cool.
That's sweet. It sucks that like the Salt Lake scene gets really cool when I'm not there. Maybe I was the problem.
Dude, come back for a visit one of these days.
Yeah,
we'll have to
I should
maybe plan it if they do Wild West Fest next year. They did just announce that they've got some cool show lineups this year. I know they booked Take Offense. They're coming. But yeah,
There's been a couple pretty sweet tours announced recently.
yeah. Did you see the Kublai Khan one?
Yeah, but they're not coming to Texas, which pisses me off. They're going to Salt Lake, aren't they?
Yep, at the complex.
Yeah, honestly, like Kublai Khan's cool, and I want to see them, but I'm going to that show for Judiciary, 100%.
Yeah, yeah.
Judiciary is so good.
That's a winded lineup. I might have. I gotta like almost like take an inhaler just like looking at it. Like there's no way.
Yeah, for sure.
No, that'd be cool. Complex is a bigger venue, but actually feel like with the fact that Kublai Khan is playing, that they need to have it at that bigger venue because they like the first time I saw him was at this venue called the Loading Dock,
Yeah,
and
that's too small.
it was super tiny. But you know, at the time of how big they were, like that was a good size. But like the last time I seen them, that was at the complex, and it was packed front to back.
Cool.
So
Yeah,
but
That's way cool.
Sorry I missed you guys for a second, but I'm stoked for that show. When I saw that one come out, I was pumped to see that
Yeah.
one coming through. So I hope that they bring a couple or at least one local band out with them, because Kyle and I were just talking about that band Pure Bliss, and we literally said it would be a good show for Kubla Khan and Tsunami. Like if they're back east, like that would be sick. Like get
Yeah.
something
Mhm.
like that on there. So
That'd be cool.
The other tour I saw was, did you see the Koyo tour that was announced with Anxious, One Step Closer, and some of the dates have Life's Question on there.
Oh, that's
And dude,
cool.
Life's Question is like one of the sickest hardcore bands right now. I freaking
Mhm.
love that band.
And then the other dates have stateside.
Yeah,
So
that's a dude. I'm pissed that that tour's not coming to Texas either. So
they do.
I actually messaged them.
loop.
I literally messaged them on Instagram and said, "Bro, Texas, what the f?"
They do the weirdest loop with that one. So they like start in Connecticut, work their way down through Virginia, and then it's like Iowa, Indiana, Ohio, and then they like circle back up and hit like Pennsylvania, Mass, and New York. So they're just doing like it's like a northeast like
Yeah.
circle.
You know what's weird is touring loops. There's like certain like loops that like not just like certain bands will do, but just like certain loops, they all kind of fall into common. Like usually if they're going to like California to Texas, they don't come to Utah because they're swooping down and going to like Texas to Oklahoma. But like sometimes they'll do a run from California to Vegas to Utah to Boise and then Washington and then around.
You know, for as remote as Utah is in terms of like driving and everything, we have a lot of shows actually come through here, which is pretty interesting because like that tour that Koyo's doing, they have like almost 20 stops right in
Mhm.
that area and they can play every night. But if you roll through Utah, like the next stop being is like Vegas or Boise or out to Denver or something like
Denver,
that,
yeah.
it's quite the drive. Like it's quite
Mhm.
the haul out there.
And it's a sucky drive, which a lot of bands have had issues with
Yep.
Yes.
this
Yep.
year, right?
Yeah, they actually it was Pain of Truth that specifically said, "Yo, that drive from Denver to Utah sucks."
Yep.
You know what? But one thing, like where I know we were talking on the last podcast, where we feel like bands have a lot more control than labels do now in this day and age. I wouldn't be surprised if if it's like, hey, we're gonna do a tour. Here's your loops that we could do, and if it's like something like, oh, we have to play Salt Lake. That's whatever we need to do to play Salt Lake, and that kind of stuff only happens for how well your scene is doing because the band doesn't want to come play for a bunch of people that just stand there. Like, especially like DIY hardcore bands.
Yeah.
They want a good reaction of a show to be like, dude, like this is where we want to film, part of our music video. This is where kids go crazy. This is the whole reason we do this. We'll take a few mediocre shows to get to the one we want to play. So,
Which, we obviously have a soft spot in our heart for our scene, right? But I'm curious, like, I want to get a band on and like ask them and be like, so do you like Utah or do you not like Utah? Because I remember being at I Wrestle a Bear once and the show gets shut down and she's sitting there and she's like, every effing time. Utah sucks. Every time we come through, it gets shut down. And,
yeah.
obviously there was a lot more drama back in the day and a lot of that's kind of subsided. But I'm curious, like Utah shows out. Like we have a cool scene. It gets pretty aggressive,
I
and
think
some
it
bands like it and others don't.
I think it depends on the connections you have with people and like who comes and supports your shows. So like Zabalba, for instance, used to play here back in the day all the time. Back in like 2007, not 2000, maybe 2008. I want to say 2008. Yeah, Nate, their singer, he was on the mic, and he was talking about, giving a shout out to bands that they used to play with back in the day was like Cherim and Tamerlane. So both of those bands played with Zabalba when they first came and played here. So that's kind of interesting to think about because I mean those bands aren't I wouldn't say aren't bands anymore. They're just not active, but those are older bands. And one of the things he said that got Zabalba to come play there was like Zabalba will come play there if Tamerlane plays. And so the connections you make with those people and like that's how Crow Killer got to play with For the Children was because our singer had made a really strong connection with Nate, and so I think a lot of that has to do with like your hardcore connections and just being a good dude. So
Yeah,
sure.
that's sick. I mean, that's one of the reasons why No Bragging Rights made a specific stop out here in Utah. Like they didn't bring any of the supporting bands. Like they just came out because they have friends here.
Same with
yep,
Dallas. Same with the Dallas show
Sa-
because it was off the path of their like actual tour.
yeah,
Yeah.
Sanction's done the same thing here. They're like, oh, we'll just come play on our off day. I'm
Yeah.
like,
And that's so sick. Like
yeah.
that's awesome.
So,
So
but
kudos to
anyway,
the older generation. Thanks for
Yeah.
hooking us all up, right?
yeah, to say it's respecting. So, but
Well, and
anyway,
I'll say, you know what? Like this current generation though, with some of the booking people that are coming around, like they're doing their best to make those connections with these newer bands, which is cool too. So we're gonna see that with these drains, tsunamis, like those people are starting to get connected to the Salt Lake scene as well, and going to probably continue to make efforts to come out this way. So it's
yeah,
awesome.
I think the best way for a hardcore scene to really thrive as far as booking shows is the promoter to have a strong relationship or ties or something like that to be involved in the scene some way or how and like the scene respects the promoter or at least majority of the scene, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
but anyway, speaking of I guess promoters that did not support the scene, kind of leads me in the band that we're talking about today, For the Fallen of Dreams.
Let's see how this segue goes.
So the first time that I got to see For the Fallen of Dreams was at a venue called The Basement. Did you guys ever go to that? I don't remember.
Where
Where's it
was
at?
that?
So there was two of them, and they were both in Ogden.
I did.
So it was ran by this guy named Jason. Terrible promoter, but he had he had booked For the Fallen Dreams. I want to say Chelsea Grin was on this show as well. So the first Basement was this little tiny venue off of I think it was 24th Street, and then it got moved to a bigger venue like a couple blocks away. So the venue, dude, it was weird. It like you had like 15 maybe 20 feet of carpet on either side and then just like a walkway of tile right down the middle. So if you were moshing, you had really good grip and you would hit that tile right in the middle and just like break your ankle.
Was it checkered tile?
Yes.
Okay, I do remember this place. Yeah, I do
Well,
remember it.
oh no. So checker tile, I think that was Boomba.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
Boomba.
That
Yeah.
Yeah,
was
yeah,
Boomba.
yeah.
Okay.
I went
But
to
so
the basement's first venue before they moved.
really? Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't even
so
remember who I saw there.
so this is the second one. And it's kind of an interesting way I guess to get into this band, but I didn't make it through their set. I got kicked out. So
Allegedly.
I don't know if I've seen them. Like maybe I can't even say I've seen them. I've seen about half their set. But like as I was getting kicked out, I brought it upon myself to like I'm gonna fight the security guard. And we talk about a friend with friends now, and they're like, I don't know what you were thinking. That dude was like triple your size, and I was just like, nope, I'm gonna win. I got tackled. And in good old hardcore fashion, my friends, started beating up the security guard. But all their kicks and punches were missing a security guard, and they were just hitting me. And and so I got kicked out, and they walk out, and I've got like a big old footprint on my face. I've got like a swollen up cheek, and they're like, "What happened?" I'm like, "You guys beat me up." So mad, But yeah, that was my introduction to For the Fallen Dreams.
What year would that have been?
Oh, it was a
Like
little bit later. It had to have
10 or
been
11?
no, it had to have been 2012.
Oh,
To
okay.
be honest.
Because I swear I saw these guys around 2009. I think I saw these guys either in the venue or Club Sound. I think they played there.
That's quite possible.
And it was when I think it was 2009, like the winter time, when Relentless came out, their second album.
Okay,
And
yeah.
I went with, he was like adjacent to our scene, but he lived in Logan with me. And so I
Hmm.
caught a ride with him to come down to the show. And it was a packed show. And I don't remember who was on on the bill, but I could have sworn it was For the Fallen Dreams.
So this is what were you saying that I vaguely remember this. This is the project from the drummer from the Ghost Inside, or was he in this before the Ghost Inside?
So he started this band. So For the Fallen Dreams was started by Andrew, however you pronounce his last name, who is the drummer currently for the Ghost Inside, the guy who's lost his leg in the bus crash.
Hmm.
Him and the only remaining original member, Jim Hawking, were
Hmm.
kind of the main writers for this band. And they started around 2003 out of
Hmm.
Lansing, Michigan.
Hmm.
And then Andrew left in 2011. So this would have
Hmm.
been before he joined the Ghost Inside. They may have been on tour with them though. When
That's
I
that's quite possible. I think they actually did tour with the Ghost Inside. I did a lot of work in Vernal around that time, so there was a good portion where I was not in town. So.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I caught these guys when Relentless came out. That was my introduction to them, and then I went back and listened to Changes, which is by far their best album. But yeah, they're interesting band to me. They
Hmm.
are a bridge between deathcore and metalcore, especially those first two albums. And then
Hmm.
they have an EP that's actually like a deathcore
Hmm.
EP. Did you guys listen to that? What I sent to you guys on YouTube?
Uh, if you did, I missed it. But
Like straight up, that should have been their sound. They
yeah,
should have stuck with deathcore.
what about you, Kyle? I know this is not your favorite band, and you're gonna rag on it, so I'm ready.
I think you said it perfectly. I got nothing else to say. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I am not a huge fan of them. I actually never listened to them till now,
Hmm.
so I don't know how that slipped through the cracks with me. But I'd never really heard of them. I've heard of them, but never listened to them till now. It just sounded like super generic metalcore.
Yeah.
I don't know. Their first album. I'm sure we're gonna get into the discography, but they like rip a riff off of Parkway Drive. Like absolutely, the first song on their first or second. It's the first album. It's
Hmm.
straight up a riff from Parkway Drive. So I don't know. Like going and listening to them and hearing that, I think I'd already set my mind that I didn't like them because I was like, that's kind of lame. I don't have
You know,
yeah, I
it's,
don't have any experience with them. So
it's interesting. So the Ghost Inside actually, I can't remember the song names, but they straight up ripped off the Warriors. The riffs are absolutely identical in every note and everything, and like the beat. So I remember listening to the Ghost Inside, going, "Man, this sounds like the Warriors." And I put the songs on together, and it's literally the same thing. And I'm like, well, whatever. But so I remember like hearing the album Changes around like 2008, and maybe that's why you missed them, because I know you went on your mission in 2009 or 2010.
10,
10.
2010. Yeah.
So they were kind of getting a little bigger around 2009, 2010. I know you were kind of on your way out the door.
I will say though that if I had listened to them back in like 2009, I probably would have liked them.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, they I think the first record I ever owned from them was the Relentless record. I don't think I ever owned Changes, but I think it's because Relentless was a lot easier to buy.
Sure.
I'm almost positive just by listening to it that Joey Sturgis did the recording on this record.
He
This
did the
falls
first two.
this falls under the same like sound, the generic sound that everybody was coming out with, where it's very computer. I don't know, what would you call it? Just generalized, computer generalized,
Digitalized. Yeah.
digitalized. Yeah, just it's not. It's good, but yeah, it's very generic, melodic metal hardcore.
It almost feels, yeah, like when I think of digital too, I think of the quality, but with this, I feel like it's a good example of like digitized because like everything is timed so perfectly that you're like, there's no way that's real. You know what I
Oh,
mean? Like
100%.
the time spaces between like some of the choruses right into the breakdowns or from the bridge to the breakdown. I'm like, that's not natural sounding.
No,
You
not at
know, it's
all.
way too like too many effects or something to do that.
What it's funny. Like, so when I did an EP in 2009, and when we recorded, I would play a whole riff, of like 4 or 5 chords or a couple notes or whatever, and as like a scratch guitar, and then we would go back and re-record the riff, and I would literally play one chord, and then I would play the next one, and the producer would splice them together. But that's where you get that robotic sound where you're like,
Yeah.
this is going to be so robotically perfect that it will never be out of time, which is fine. But like when I'm hearing it and I can feel that it feels unnatural, I'm like, I don't know if I like this or not.
It's like what's that term? It's almost like uncanny valley. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like when you
Yes.
see
Yeah.
like a robot or something that looks human, but like you can just tell that it's not human even though it looks human.
Yeah.
That's like this is like the uncanny valley version of music. Like you listen to it and you're like, okay, like I get they're playing instruments, but it's like it's not real, you know?
Yeah. I like the more raw sound, like less splicing all in all that stuff. So
And I'll honestly say though, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but that's why I like their latest album more
mm-hmm.
because I feel like they're not trying to fake being a heavy metalcore band. They're just playing music.
Mm-hmm.
So like if it's not going to sound good, at least they're being true to it.
Right.
And that's seriously, I think their last album's their best because of that. It didn't feel like they were forcing it to be something it wasn't.
Oh
So,
man.
I mean, it is more dad rock, so I mean, I see where you're coming from.
but it fit like what they're doing. Like it fits. Like that's what it is, and it fits. And so I was like,
Right.
I can listen to this more than like the first
Right.
like 4 or 5 albums or whatever there are.
See, and like when I was saying I like their EP probably the very best when I found that, it was like Sea of Treachery. It was first Suicide Silence style as Blood Runs Black. Like they should have stuck in that vein. But they started to trend more towards metalcore, but they kept the heavy vocals. That's what
Mm-hmm.
actually stood out to me when I first heard these guys is most metalcore at this time, that kind of 2008 range, was doing those very mid. You could really understand what the vocals were saying. Think like the Ghost Inside kind of thing. You could it was a yell as opposed to the heavy screams.
Mm-hmm.
And Changes was a deathcore heavy vocal, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So when it first came out, it was like you would have liked them back in the day, Kyle. Like
I know I would have. I know I would have.
I know you would have too, because this is what we would have been in your white Grand Am in with the heavy bass drops and it's shaking the windows
Yeah.
and just rolling her
Mm-hmm.
down the streets in this kind of stuff. It
Mm-hmm.
was
But see,
awesome.
but we've talked about this before because I think I would have liked them and I think I would have listened to them. I probably would have had an album and stuff. But if I was like, okay, I want to listen to something super heavy in my car with good breakdowns, bass drops, all that crap, I'm going to throw Give Me a D from Parkway Drive. You know, like it's a cool
true.
album. Like they're cool. Like I know I would have liked this, but I also know that I would have been like, nah, I'm just going to throw Parkway on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think they were definitely like a good transition after like Parkway Drive's first 2 records, though.
That's fair because I guess at this time Parkway Drive's already starting to
Because I fell off,
lose it a little bit, right?
with Deep Blue,
Yeah.
and so like
Which
I
was
mean,
2010.
So I'd have been
So
like, I need something new. And so if these guys came in, it was like, hey, this is actually like more like got like a breakdowny feel the whole time. And like you said with the vocals, that's actually what I figured like why I would think you would like these guys. I know we've talked about vocals are huge for you. Where this isn't like so over dramatic, like deathcore heavy, where you're like, ah, it's a little much, or so high where you're like,
Yeah.
that's two children of Bodom for me. Where this has just got like a nice, like chunky feel, but it's
Sure.
not overbearing.
yeah, I mean, he wasn't going Mitch Lurker, right? He wasn't like guttural below demon spawn kind of thing, and then also the shrieking highs. He was kind of right. He was lower than most metalcore, but then also a little bit higher than most metalcore. So he had a
Mm-hmm.
good range. He was like Winston from
Mm-hmm.
Parkway.
Parkway.
He
Yeah.
had a good range.
Yep, exactly. So, well, so that first record changes, right? So the song I got kicked out during was "Brother in Arms."
Just right off the bat.
Yeah. What do you guys? So it's weird. In I don't know if it says it in Spotify. I don't know what platform you guys use, but in Apple Music, it actually says 2010. It has like an American Me thing on it, but
Yeah.
that is not the album art, and that is not the order.
For whatever reason, it
It was
has
like
American Me, Serbian Nightmare
Nightmare Machine.
Machine. Yeah,
Yes,
is the art rolling around for it on
yeah.
all
Oh
of the
yeah.
No, the
streaming
original one,
platforms?
it was like green and like
It's a
yellow
cityscape.
tannish. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah. So
Oh, that's because I'm looking at the actual album art on land.
yeah,
On land. Online.
yeah,
That's bizarre, dude. What the heck? How did that
yeah.
happen?
I did the
You
same
know,
thing.
because of that though, I did go listen to some American Me today. You know,
Yeah,
I do like American Me.
American
So
Me is good. But yeah. So this record, that's with their first vocalist. What's interesting when I went from this record to Relentless, I honestly did not notice the vocals until somebody pointed it out to me that it was a different one. Did you guys notice at all? Like, would you ever notice if you wouldn't have been pointed out?
I think now that I've like matured with this stuff a little bit, and I'm actually looking for these things. I did notice it, but
Right.
I don't think I would have if I was just throwing it on, listening to it.
Mm-hmm. So this is when I learned that the first vocalist went off and started his project called Legend. Did you guys get to listen to them at all?
yeah, I was actually a big fan of Legend back when they first got started.
Legend is good. I think they're heavier,
Mm-hmm.
but kind of in the same genre though.
Yeah, I mean, this is all heavy metalcore. Like they're treading on the lines of deathcore.
Mm-hmm.
Like so you just drop some of the technical aspects that you get in deathcore, a lot of the tremolo picking and some of that kind of stuff, and you
Mm-hmm.
stick more to the metalcore formula,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, instead of being like drop C tuning, like they probably drop their tunings a little bit lower, a little bit, you know, more chuggy and stuff like that. And
Right.
you know, it's overall just a heavier fill.
What did you guys think about these first two records as far as changes in Relentless?
They could have put these two out and been done. No, like this is what I like. Like I love these two albums. To be honest, I had both of them. I listened to them a lot when we got started on them over the last week. Like I was singing along to them. I really do like these albums. I didn't realize they had switched vocalists between Changes and Relentless. I thought the change was after Relentless. So it is interesting that way.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Kyle? All
Yeah, I
sounds the
thought they were.
same.
It all sounds the same. It's like it's not bad though, right?
Yeah.
It's not my music right now,
Right.
but it's not bad. And
So
yeah.
I grouped these two albums together because to me, I think Relentless is basically just like an enhanced version of Changes. But I feel like a lot of the songs are pretty interchangeable
Mm-hmm.
on either record. You know, it could be a double record, or they could swap songs and swap album names.
So
Yeah.
I need to correct what I said. The song that they ripped off of Parkway Drive is actually from Relentless, and I want to say it's Perceptions is the song.
I'm gonna have to go listen to that. I don't doubt it.
Yeah, I mean, with how big Parkway was at the time and the vein that these guys are in, like, I'm sure that that might be the one that you found, but I'm sure there's probably 10 of them that are Parkway ripoffs. You know,
Oh, I'm absolutely sure. I'm absolutely
Parkway
sure.
was the goats at the time, right?
Oh
Mhm.
yeah, for
Everyone
sure.
wanted to be Parkway Drive.
Yep.
So,
So this goes to the follow up record from that is called Backburner, and this is probably my favorite album from them.
oh, see, and it's
And
so
this is
bad.
also the first swift in change of the band. They add singing. And so they kind of start following the same pattern of like, oh good, they're singing, they're gonna get soft, whatever. I really like this entire record front to back because it has like breakdown, so it's still heavy, but the choruses are all super catchy, like they stick in my head, vocal patterns, and it's still very melodic. Like you can still kind of understand what's going on. It's not so just like it's not boring to me. But what's interesting is I remember when I bought this record, they were only listed as a 4-piece. I think they were either missing a drummer or a bass player. I can't remember which one.
I think it was the bass player because I think that this was right after a couple of the people had started to leave. And,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of skipped over this. These guys have gone through like 20 plus members.
Oh yeah,
Like the turnover on this band has been insane. So for them to still have 7 albums put out there, it's actually pretty impressive.
yeah. I remember you sent that picture, and I mean I figure like when they kind of change their sound, they've already been through one singer, right? And then we talk about the Ghost Inside drummer leaving. Now they've got a singer. Now they're saying they're only a 4-piece. It's like, so right around this time is when they released Backburner. It was shortly after this when I got to see them. So let me hear your input there, Trevor. Why this album sucks?
Where to even begin? So Changes and Relentless. So Changes had no clean singing at all.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't any clean parts. Relentless had a couple. They started to incorporate it. Backburner goes straight to Day to Remember style. Like there's so much clean singing on it, and it is so repetitive over and over. Like you say that the choruses are catchy. The only reason they're catchy is they say the same line 15 times, and that's all they say in the song. Like it's the same thing, just over and over. And it just didn't catch me, man. Like I make a very conscious effort not to be negative about bands on this podcast because I fear if we take the time to research them and everything like that, like find the good, not the bad. There
Mm-hmm.
was no redeeming qualities to this album, in my opinion. I did not like this album.
What about you, Kyle?
I don't think it's. I would rather listen to this one than their first two.
Yes, yeah, it's crazy.
You know what I think?
I've said 100 times that I'm a sucker for melodic stuff, and so I enjoy the melodic change.
You know what I think makes this record different from the first two is they stepped away from the non-traditional of writing, went back to verse, chorus, bridge, chorus on pretty much every song. I think that's where you're finding the repetitiveness and the same vocals and stuff like that, because the first two records weren't really like that. I think Relentless was a little bit, but it was a different strategy of writing. What do you think?
This was supposed to be like their crowning jewel, right? Like this is what they should be like headlining off of kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
This one was produced by Tom Denny of A Day to Remember. And A Day to Remember had just put out like Common Courtesy. And they were like going as high as you could go in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And this was their attempt at doing something like that. And so, yeah, I don't know. It just, his vocals, his clean singing is nowhere near Jeremy's clean singing. And so I think that that's where it lost me too. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
fine, but you want to talk about digitizing? There was more auto tune on this guy's voice than like any other metalcore album at the time. Like I don't even think that he could like sing a normal note with how auto tuned it was.
Yeah.
It is interesting to see the Day to Remember influence though, because they had Jeremy feature on a song on the last album, right?
Yeah.
So it was
Right.
almost like they just showed up and they were like, "Okay, Day to Remember, tell us what to do,"
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and then they
That's the
just
way it felt.
Yeah.
Well, I know, like, so when Tom Denny did the first two, played on the first two A Day to Remember records. I mean, I think he still had a huge hand in the rest of their work, but he, like, to my understanding, like, went back home because like family stuff and like that. That's priorities. So he couldn't really tour, but he was not writing. He was like producing and recording a lot of bands around that time. This was shortly after Homesick,
Mm-hmm.
up until now, probably still doing it.
And
But
this was one of his first goes at it. Like
mhm,
I was listening to an interview today with their guitarist Jim Hawking, who's like again, he's the only remaining original member, and he was talking about they actually don't love the mix on this, and they just said Tom was just young in his producing career.
mhm,
Like they just felt like it didn't have the same oomph behind it. And when he said that, I was like, yeah, it didn't. Like their breakdowns, they just fell flat.
mhm.
It kind of fell flat to me.
So I'm gonna lump these two records in together right after because this is right before the album that came out in 2018, which is a huge drastic change. I want to see what you guys think about this. But so one thing to note, yeah, they had seven records. They're all pretty much back to back. There's not really much gap in between these. I think the biggest gap you've got is 2014 to 2018.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, it's pretty much 2008, 2010, 11, 12, 14. So, they're basically given a year to tour on this record and releasing more. So,
Yeah, but I guess you can do that when you've got members cycling in and out and writing stuff, right?
right. Well, here's something interesting. Could you imagine? So they've got this massive roster of band members, right? But one original remaining member. Any person I've ever played with has given me a different idea or a different thought on how to write something. So maybe like him being able to produce all these ideas and have them all still kind of go with the same direction for the Fallen Dreams, but have like this giant plethora of stuff to write because you've played with 20 other guitarists or something like that.
Did you just do that on purpose because they have a song called Plethora of?
No, I'm just a true fan. But
No,
anyway,
so it is interesting, right? Because this is where Andrew leaves. So this
mhm,
is the album that his best friend, he said he's known Andrew since he was like 4 years old. They
mhm,
built the band together. And I guess Andrew was getting into it with some of the revolving band members,
mhm,
right? And he got the opportunity to go to a Ghost Inside. He said, I didn't fault him. Like it was a good opportunity. It was more the style he was looking to play and everything. So yeah, let's go for it.
right.
Andrew and Jim were the two main writers. So
I
to
can see
see
that.
such a drastic change, Jim had his hand in it. And then Wasted Youth, Jim said he was so burnt out that he actually only had about like 10% influence on the writing on that one. So it was all just revolving band members who wrote the
Mhm,
next album,
Yeah,
which
right,
but
was
Wasted Youth,
interesting.
Wasted
right.
Youth sounds just like an A Day to Remember album.
Yeah,
Yes.
Like you could slip that album into A Day to Remember's discography, and I don't know that anyone would catch it.
right. I,
Well, and Tom Denny produced it again.
mhm. I
So,
I think Wasted Youth is really good, but I also think it wasn't anything new.
yes,
It was just it's like
it was
any
the
album
metalcore formula.
it's like any album Hatebreed releases. It's just another Hatebreed album. It's good, but they all sound the same, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's a good record. Same with Heavy Hearts. I think they're pretty interchangeable as well, in my opinion. I think Heavy Hearts actually has a really good song. I think it's called Emerald Blue. I think it's the first one on there.
Yeah.
Or like comes in and they start saying, or he starts screaming, "Fight for your life." Is that the song?
I believe so. I believe that is. So this is what's okay. So I actually liked Heavy Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
So I like Changes. I like Relentless. I didn't like Backburner. I didn't like Wasted Youth. Heavy Hearts is when the original vocalist comes back. I shouldn't say original, when Chad Rulig comes back, the guy who
Mm-hmm.
was on Changes.
Yeah.
And at this time, Andrew started writing with them again.
Mm-hmm.
So he's playing Ghost Inside, but he came back as one of the main writers for the band.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the follow-up album we should have got to Relentless.
Right.
I
Yeah,
feel
I
like
agree with
that's the
that.
most consistency right there.
Right. What's interesting is I feel like Emerald Blue and Brother in Arms like are pretty close in how they both start. Kind of just like a heavy lyric into like kind of a breakdown. It's very melodic.
Yep.
I think they're those two songs. I think those are their two best songs in my opinion. But what do you think about this album, Kyle? Heavy Hearts,
It's good. It's
or
yeah,
does it
it's
sound
better than
like,
the.
or does it sound like heavy farts?
It sounds kind of like heavy farts. Like, yeah. Again, it's not bad. It's just at this time period with this kind of metalcore where they move to, I'd rather listen to Fit for a King.
Okay,
So,
I
because
like
that's
that.
the album. Like that's the problem with these guys is I just feel like, look, it's 2012 or whatever. Like I've been listening to bands 5, 6, 7 years earlier that were doing this exact same sound.
You know, though, I really like Fit for a King though. Fit for a King.
I do too.
I
That's
it's
what I'm.
like
That's what I'm saying.
it's like borderline bro metal, but it's good.
Their older stuff's like freaking heavy.
I like that the new album they have. It's like, well, newer. It's like the Blue album with like the guy with the sword. I think.
Yeah,
I don't know how old that one is, but I really like that record.
yeah. But I just like listening to like, God, I can't remember their album names, but their like
Mm-hmm.
third album sounds a lot like this, and it came out before, and so it's like, I don't know. It's not bad. I do though feel that in 2012 that you're not getting a lot of this kind of metalcore, so it's kind of cool to see them come back to a sound like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm down with that. I do like the melodic parts because I'm a sucker for melodic stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Which
it just
I think that this is the most melodic album they put out. Heavy Hearts. I
Mm-hmm.
think that this one fits the melodic hardcore the most out
yeah.
of any of them. The one thing that I found interesting about these guys is I always feel like I don't remember we said this about another band, but they were always a step behind. Like they took what was popular and then they put that out a year late kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. It was always just like they were like, okay, so who's the biggest band? Okay, let's copy that album. So
Mm-hmm.
2011, it's we're copying A Day to Remember, who just put out Common Courtesy, right?
Mm-hmm.
In 2014, it's we're gonna copy like the Wage Wars, the of Mice and Men, and stuff like that, and who did it in like 12 and 13, and now they're in 14. So they were always just like a year behind the trends, which I
Yeah.
think is what made them not elevate.
Mm-hmm.
Because like think about this though, looking through some of their stuff, like 2012, it says they did a couple like shows or festivals or something with bands like For Today.
Mm-hmm.
Like For Today is a better known band for this stuff, right? Attila, My Children, My Bride, 100th, and then you've got stuff like let's see, Of Mice and Men. Like that's a huge band that kind of bled into this. You know what I mean? And so that's just what's hard about talking about bands like this is they're really good, but it's almost like, and maybe the cycling band members, they couldn't really find their groove. They couldn't find a sound that worked for them. So they were
I
like, yeah,
I
hey, Gideon's really big right now. Let's sound like Gideon.
mm-hmm. I think two things. I think with the long list of band members they had, maybe the touring was just not optimal, right? Trying to find people to stick together long enough to make it a month. But I also think too, like as we're getting through the years closer to 2013, 2014, social media is more popular by this point than it was in 2008. As far as trying to keep up with what's in, I've said it all. I say it all the time. Like it's really hard to keep up with social media, just in general. People pick like one point and they're like upset about it, or like that's like the hot topic for like a week, and then it changes in a week, and it just keeps getting faster and faster and faster. So it's hard to like keep up with a sound that's really popular right now, or a subject or whatever. I mean, like, hey, like we were listening to Parkway Drive in 2000, what, 2006, 2007,
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah.
and we were so fixated on them, not just because they were good, but like there was not another band that sounded like that, and you couldn't just go find one. I mean, remember searching through like Pure Volume or
Yeah.
MySpace accounts and just going through crap after crap after crap, and then so it's like, no, this is the band. This is it. There is nothing else. This is it.
Right.
And
You know what's
now it's like, oh well, my friend here hits this up, this, and then all of a sudden you've got 10 bands all sound the same. You're like, oh, well, maybe
Yep.
Purple Drive's not the band. You know what I mean?
yeah. One thing I was going to say that I thought was interesting was looking at some of their tours. So, like 2010 and 2011, they play 159 shows, and then 2011, 169 shows.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is that the few that they headline, especially in this time, and even some of the later ones, they don't really play with bands that like got big. And maybe that's just me looking into dumb stuff, but I feel like it wasn't ever that they headlined with like good bands. All the shows that seemed really cool, they weren't headlining, like the Ghost Inside tour, not headlining.
They were always just playing the supporting
Yeah, they were always
role.
just playing the supporting ones. I mean, even
Mm-hmm.
this, like they support the Amity Affliction. Like, why could they not have been bigger than the Amity Affliction? They've been around longer. They go on a Census Fail tour. They go on like a Bury Your Dead tour. And so I don't know. I think that's kind of interesting that they just always, maybe it just always felt like they were playing catch up.
Well, and so one thing that Jim was saying in that interview I was listening to today is they came out so fast and so aggressive with changes that every show that they went to or every tour they went on, all the kids were always just being like, play changes, play changes. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
touring the Back Burner and Wasted Youth albums, and the kids are sitting down there being like, play Brother in Arms.
Yeah, well, because back in the day, you probably don't have those albums because you just have changes from 4 years ago, but they've already released 4 more albums. And you're like, I can't
Mm-hmm.
keep up with this. So if I'm going to go see you play, I want to hear you play an album that we all know that's from 4 years ago. Well, guess what? None of those members are there anymore.
I think
Right.
it's a real thing that like when people go see bands, I do it all the time. I want to see the songs that I got to see when I first saw the band, or I want to see the songs that I missed out on. So like when Stick to Your Guns play, I'm like, I'll go if they play This Is More. I don't want to hear
Sure.
anything else really. I mean, not even if it's bad.
Yeah.
That's just what I want to hear, And
Yeah.
I think they kind of got heckled at one show, and their vocalist was just like, "You missed out on that era, and we're not playing it. We're not playing anything from that album." And they just kept playing new stuff. I mean, do their thing, but yeah, I would do the same thing if For the Fallen Dreams was going to play. Yeah, I'd want to hear stuff off of Changes. I'd want to hear stuff off of Relentless. That's honestly what my biggest worry was when I went and saw AFI.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they're vastly different now, and like they played like a huge list from all different eras, which was way cool.
Yeah, but they're all the same members.
Right, but I also would have been really bummed if I went and not that any of their new stuff is bad at all, because I really like all their new stuff, but I actually would have been kind of bummed if they didn't play anything off of like Sing the Sorrow or Black
Yeah. If they played
Sails.
like Blood Album Forward or Burials Forward kind of
Yeah,
thing.
like it's
Yeah.
not bad, but I'm like I would rather just listen to that in my headphones at work.
Sure.
I want to see Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's a different feeling, a different emotion for sure.
yeah,
So this kind of brings up a question that I've been thinking about this week. Like, do bands owe the fans anything? Like you talk about this example of Stick to Your Guns and be like, hey, you guys missed that era. But if it's like if you're a crowd of people that are from that era, do you owe the fans that to play it? Or at this point, like at what point is it like the fans made you, right? Because the fans got you big, right?
right.
The fans are what pushed you forward. They're what you did it
Mhm.
all for, like your popularity is because of them. Like, is there a point where a band
Right.
owes the fans?
I honestly think, in my opinion, if you're in a band and your CDs grow, you call it your arsenal of songs grow, and obviously the first song you wrote to the last song you wrote is going to be massively different. I think you should always just play songs from every kind of generation, new stuff to stuff in between to old stuff. I mean, I think to an extent, yeah, because like the only reason I got into Stick to Your Guns was because of the first record. But like somebody who finds Stick to Your Guns it later and it's like Diamond, they want to hear something off of Diamond. I'm just like the first generation that got to hear them, so that's what I want to hear. But so I don't know. I think so, but like I also don't think too that like a crowd should really control a band either because I
Sure.
mean it's their stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think, Trevor?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because like you take a band like Newfound Glory, and if you go and they don't play My Friends Over You, you're gonna be pissed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but that album was 2000 or 2002. Like, when was that one?
Something like
2002.
that.
2002.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? Like, if 2011 Newfound Glory comes with Radio Surgery, and then 2014 Resurrection, and then 2017 Makes Me Sick, like, there's probably not a song off of those three albums that I honestly care if you play.
Mm-hmm.
You have three albums that honestly you can just cut out of your discography, and I would not care
Mm-hmm.
at all.
Right.
So yes, you owe it to me to play a song that I want to hear. You know what I mean?
But see, that's so like the devil's advocate to that. And the reason why I thought this was an interesting thought is like, well, it's their music. Like they get to play and do what they want, right?
Mhm.
But do you
Yeah.
owe like, because if you're for the Fallen Dreams and you don't have any original band members, but the kids are only coming out because they want to hear stuff off of Relentless and Change, do you owe it to the crowd to do that, or do you say no, like that's not our music anymore? We're gonna play what we want to play because it is our music,
AKA 100th.
aka
That-
100th. Like does 100th owe it to people to play their old stuff? Like that's
Well, let's
Apparently
put it
not,
this way:
yeah.
if they'd have to be totally fine with the crowd changing, because, like, okay, like to your point, if 100th was going to play and they were like, "We're not playing any of our old stuff," I would not go see them,
Right.
and that's my choice. While it's their choice to not play their old stuff, but they've also, if they were to throw a fit, like no one comes to our shows, well,
yeah.
that's on you, and you've got to search a new crowd because your band doesn't sound the same. You know what I mean?
So like
Yeah.
another band that I feel like is a good example of this, and we've talked about them a little bit now, is Parkway Drive.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, their first like 3 or 4 albums is what made them big, right?
Yeah.
So do they owe it to us to play songs off those albums, even though that's not the music they make anymore?
So here's the thing about Parkway though, is they got big in our scene, and then they put out, what album was it? The one,
Atlas?
what one has Death Grip on it? It might be Atlas. Anyways, one of those ones. And basically like their genre changed. And they immediately got picked up by the bigger like metalhead old school scene in general. The people who were watching the Metallicas and the Anthraxes and that kind of stuff, that genre basically absorbed them. And so they immediately had a bigger scene, a bigger genre willing to sell out crowds. So our scene didn't matter anymore.
So you should only play music for the scene that shows up. Because see, a band like AFI is going to be real hard on that. Because people like Josh are going to show up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's not going to
tough.
want to hear the Blood album only. You know what I
Right.
mean? So does AFI owe it to people like Josh to
Here-
play stuff? or
Okay,
shut
well,
your
let's put
mouth?
it so like what Trevor says. So like if Newfound Glory came and did not play My Friends Over You but played like everything else from like, I don't know, what would you say, like 2012 to 2015, right? You'd be like, what a waste of money.
Yeah.
It's not that it's bad. It's just you didn't get to hear anything you wanted. So when we toured, we picked our most popular song. I don't even know what it was, but we were like, we're going to play this one every night because kids go off no matter what. We'll play this one every night. But the other 4, or I think we played 6 songs total, but the other 5 songs we'll play one set one night. We'll play the other set the other night. So we kind of get to play both songs.
That's cool.
But the one song that we know everyone wanted to hear is played every night.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a hard thing because like sure you're the one making the music, you're up on stage and doing all of that, but there has to be a level. Like honestly, you roll through and you don't play your best songs, the next time you come through on the tour, you're not
No
going
one's
to get the
gonna
same
go.
crowd.
Yeah.
So like there's a mutual understanding right? If I show up, I expect to hear this
Right.
kind of thing. If I don't hear it, that's fine for maybe one tour, but if you do it a couple of times, yeah, I'm done seeing
Yeah.
you.
I mean, yeah. So the reason why I'm asking that question though is you talk about this time period for the Fallen Dreams, and like maybe that's the reason why they don't headline and why they don't get big like that is they don't play the songs that made them because they don't have the band members and they don't. That's not the music they're playing now, and I don't know. It just was a question that popped in my head. So
And you know what? Like, this is a Rise band. It's Rise Records. They put out all of their albums
yeah,
besides two. They were very ingrained, obviously, with the member turnover, right? Most of those members are out touring with Attila. One of them went on to start Wilson, was a band that he started. One of them is the drum tech for Asking Alexandria. Like, they're ingrained in the scene. So they're going to be like people who the other bands are going to call just because they probably like hanging out with them.
Right.
And
yeah,
they're good. They're a style of music that is similar enough that kids will still like to see, even though they might not sing along with. So they're in like a weird area where they're no one's favorite band and they don't care. You know what I mean? Like that's what
yeah.
it is. So,
I don't know, man. You brought up Wilson, and I thought of their first album, and I didn't hear anything else you said after that. So,
dude, freaking Wilson, man.
but
Love Wilson.
We're getting just up over an hour, so we'll try and wrap this up a little quick. So the last two albums, two drastic changes. So you've got Six, and then the self-titled.
Yep.
So I was on a shuffle one day, and a song off of Six came on. I want to say the song was Unstoppable, maybe. I can't remember.
Probably that's the most popular.
It came on, and I was listening to it. And I'm like, yeah, this is actually really good. And I went and looked at it and said for the Fallen Dreams, and I went, huh? Did one of those because so the vocals in it honestly reminded me of Our Last Night. I thought it was Our Last Night that had gone heavy because like the clean vocals sounded like it, and I was like,
Yeah.
so then I went to the record and just listened to it, and it's not a bad record, but it was a drastic change.
Yeah.
It definitely went to the softer side. What did you guys think
which
about this record?
I'm all right with it.
Yeah. Honestly, like I bought this one on a whim just during a Rise Record
It's the
sale.
one you
So I
have
have
on
this one
vinyl,
on
right?
vinyl. Yep. And I've played it a couple of times on my vinyl over the last week, just listening to it again. And it's a fine album. Like it's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing overly catchy about it, but it's just like it's kind of just
It's a good
like
record. Doesn't
yeah,
really stand out, nothing like that, but it's a good record.
yeah, that's exactly what it is. So again, you're not gonna be one's favorite band because of this record.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm
So
down with the sound change though. I feel like this sound suits them a lot better, which we'll agree with on the next album. So
The well, you got to think too. This is 2018 to 2008. This is 10 years later. So
yeah,
right? Is that 10 years?
yep.
10 years. Yeah. So then we hit into 2023, which is this year. This is a self-titled record. Another drastic change with the clean vocals, and like where you were kind of saying this kind of reminds me more of like kind of bro-ish metal, almost kind of like Fit for a King. It's got like a different. I don't know what you would call the vocals.
It's
They're
new
like
metal.
they're like deeper,
yeah, it's kind of new metally.
It's
not
new
whiny,
metal.
but it's definitely like man, I don't know. It kind of almost reminds me of Trivium vocals, just like
Sure.
It's
No,
like
actually, that's probably a really good call.
it's like if Creed had a double bass and blast beats. You know.
yeah. And if they could take me higher,
Yeah. No, like I listened to this album like 3 times. So this is the only other album. They had two that were not on Rise Records. This was one of them.
Mhm.
And you can totally tell this is them just trying something else kind of thing.
Right,
And at this point, they don't care.
right.
Like they full on don't care whether you like the band or not because the members who are currently in there, Chad, the vocalist, plays in Legend.
Mhm,
The one guitarist is in A Virtue. The bassist is from Attila.
mhm.
I don't know where the drummer's from, but he was part of another like they're all part of different projects. And one of the things that made me so mad, and I wanted to ask you guys about this, is I was listening to Chad on a podcast today, and he said this was a collaboration album. Like
Mhm.
I was working on songs with DL, who used to be part of the Acacia Strain, who plays
Mhm.
in Legend with him, and some of those songs that didn't make Legend are what we used for this album.
Mhm.
And I know that Jim Hawking was working with someone else, and then the bass player is working with like Franz from Attila, and it's just like, so it's like, okay, so it's not a For the
Dude,
Fallen Dreams album.
yeah, but that's kind of a genius idea because if you have
I
this
hate it.
entity, it's a fake band, and random people throughout the years can come into it and just write crap music that they want just to try stuff out, and then they don't have to burn it. Right, like now their bands don't have to write crappy albums because you can just come and write a crappy album for the Fall of Dreams. It's genius. That
So
is like musical genius.
should they have named this album like the Recyclable album?
Yeah,
Like straight up,
like
like
some
it
like
should
you're
have
in a
been
band.
called Leftover Trash.
Yeah,
That's what that album should have been
you're
called.
like a good band. Like let's say you're a guitarist for a good band. You start writing crappy riffs. They send you for the Fallen Dreams.
Yeah.
And you have to write an album for them. And then you can come back to that band and be like, okay, did you get it out of you? Did you get it out of your system? Is the new metal gone? And then yeah, you can you can play your
You
old
know what?
stuff. So
You know what's interesting? Did you guys ever listen to Boxcar Racer?
Yeah.
So I read a thing a while ago that said that when Tom DeLonge started Boxcar Racer, that was just a project for him to figure out how to write the next Blink-182 album.
dude, it's kind of genius.
But like
Sure.
the
It's kinda
Boxcar
genius.
Racer self-titled album
Really
is
good.
so much better than their next
Anything
record
Blink's ever done.
that they tried to put out. I think that was a
It's
self-titled.
crazy. It's like it's heavier. Like it's a more heavy album.
Dude, yeah,
So
Boxcar Racer is better than anything Blink's ever done.
But you know what? I actually think the Boxcar Racer album is in more relation to the newest Blink-182 album,
yeah.
in
I
my
haven't listened to
opinion.
the new Blink album.
I think it follows a lot of the same punk patterns and the same like weird stuff that Boxcar Racer had.
I'd have to go listen to the new Blink
But
again.
I think bands do that.
Smart.
I think that's cool. It's kind of noted, but
Maybe that's how we get around Trevor's little issue with changing your name, right? There you go.
Everyone just has to go to For the Fallen Dreams.
Yeah, you just start like another side project where you just go get all the crap, and if it lands, then it lands. If it doesn't, then you're like, it was just a side project, guys.
Honestly, that's what I've said. Take your BS elsewhere.
Yeah,
Leave
no.
like all the other
Yeah,
stuff
but see, the
under
examples
that
that we've
band
given
name.
are hundreds. New albums are dope. So
All right, we're done with Humble. All right, get off
Okay,
that D.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's why I like this album. My issue with a lot of new metal is sometimes it just feels icky. Like I'm not a Korn fan because sometimes it just feels icky. I just don't like it. I don't like normal corn either because I'm allergic to it. I get explosive diarrhea. So, like both corns cause problems to me.
it's corn.
But I can appreciate some of the new metal that doesn't like feel icky to me. I don't know how to explain it. All right, I don't know how to explain
Here's the thing.
it. So
I really like Korn because they're super heavy, but I also know what you're saying because like I won't say what bands they are. But like, hey man, you like this band? And I'm like, no, I don't like gross metal.
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
I can smell your album a mile away.
yeah. That's how I feel about a lot of new metal, to be honest. Like that's how I feel a lot about it. But there's some that I feel like aren't that bad. This was an album that I was like, it's new metal-y, but it doesn't feel icky. It doesn't feel gross.
Yeah,
Like Fire from the Gods is another one. Like that's new metal that I can just listen to and not feel gross. So
yeah.
I'm not a new metal fan.
I think what I will say about all these albums to kind of wrap this up. I could pretty much put on any of these albums if I'm doing something and it doesn't bother me. Like and from what I've noticed anyway, unless no one says anything, that it doesn't really bother anybody else. Whether I'm at work, at home doing something, I've got it playing in the radio when I'm driving around in the car with kids and the wife, whatever. It's just because it's like I say, it's not overbearingly heavy and it's not like super like annoying or anything. It's just kind of like there, but it's like pretty good. So on all their albums all the way through.
I mean, and that's why they're not headliners.
That's a
It's
fair
just
take.
pretty good.
Oh yeah.
It's just pretty good. So I don't know. If I'm ordering like albums, I go Changes, Relentless, and I'd probably go 6, Heavy Heart. And as much as it pains me, I'd put this one ahead of Wasted Youth and Backburner. Backburner is by far their worst album. It
I
was
think
so bad.
I think Backburner's the best.
I know, and the fact that like it's so funny that you say that, but no, I'm like old For the Fallen Dreams first, and then
I don't know. Like the songs on Relentless are really good, but like Kyle was saying, it's so robotic. It's hard for me to listen to sometimes. Where I'm like, I'm listening to a computer. I feel like I'm listening to Zelda metal.
Uh
yeah. Here's the thing, like
huh. Zelda
just
metal. I love that.
knowing the time frame that it was from, though, in 2008, with Joey Sturgis putting out all the other bands that were like that, if you're gonna listen to a 2008, 2009 album, that's the sound you're gonna get in most of it, and so I don't
I
care.
don't. Yeah, but I don't think I'm listening to them though. I think I'm listening to like Veil of Maya or Within the Ruins or
They're different,
some of those other
though.
like genty super
But that's the thing, is they weren't
digital
quite
bands.
like genty. You know what I mean? Like you're talking like a different style. Like this is still metalcore. Like
Yeah.
you just are hating on metalcore. Get the metalcore
I don't
hate
like
out of you,
I don't
bro.
like gent either. So
Well, then
I
why are you
just
talking about Bahamaya?
because I'd rather listen to Within the Ruins than these guys. But
All right, all right.
I don't think I've ever listened to Within the Ruins.
the guy's bald, so it's like represent. You know.
But you weren't bald at the time.
Listen, I think the best thing that I saw, though, in researching these guys is when Chad first left after Changes on Wikipedia. It says, "What
Is
did
it
it? Where
Ponytail?
did
Is it the guy named Ponytail?
it?" No, it
Okay.
wasn't Ponytail.
They might have been more successful if they had a guy in their band the whole time named Ponytail.
Named Ponytail.
Yeah.
They said when leaving the band, he took a brief hiatus and worked at Hot Topic before starting Legend. Like the fact that they put that like he worked at Hot Topic was just like the best like icing on the top.
Yeah.
That is 2008, 2009.
It is.
I'm going to leave a touring, like nationally touring band and work at Hot Topic.
So
He was
sick.
probably
better
wearing
than that.
like fingerless gloves with like the fishnet things that come like up his arms, you know?
Heck yeah.
Probably.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, I
Let's
was
look at-
I was happy to listen to metalcore. To be honest with you, I didn't mind listening to this week.
No, it was good. But who's on the list next week? We doing next week? We're doing next week, right? No one's out of town.
Yes.
I think
Wow.
we had a couple ideas, and let's see what you think, Josh. So we can't do a band, but I was also thinking, since it's the end of the year, what if we did like a wrapped, like a 2023 wrapped type episode? We could talk
A
about
what? Oh,
like
I
a
thought
rap.
you were like, we should talk about a rap band. I'm like,
We can rap. We're gonna freestyle rap the entire time.
all I want to do
Dream
is
style.
talk about Limp Bizkit, about them coming out and looking like cowboys.
Hey, you know what? Like, let's talk about like the best music that came out. Let's talk about like the best reunion that happened, the best 20-year anniversary that happened.
Yeah,
Like we could
Easy.
do
Limp
a summary
Bizkit,
of
and
that
then
kind of stuff.
solid second is Creed.
exactly. This Creed comeback this year has been pretty sweet.
Yeah,
So, and the memes are just like I could live off of Creed memes right now. So,
I got one. I gotta send it to you.
Okay. We'll wrap up with that. But yeah, if we don't do that, we'll post who we're going to talk about. So,
because I think it's my turn next, and I've got some dang good ideas. So,
Cool.
but you will have to wait and see.
Wait and
sweet.
see. Sweet.
Also, tune in for the next episode. We got a pretty cool one coming up.
Cool.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Peace.
See you.